We're talking with Ruth Wasserman Lande, a specialist on Arabic affairs and a research fellow at the Misgav Institute for Strategic Affairs. So tell us then why Egypt is so opposed to a limited Israeli military presence along the Philadelphia route.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me on your platform. I think it's very important to understand that the Egyptian policies throughout the years, this is not new, have been, there's been a duality in the Egyptian policy, not only vis-a-vis Israel, but in general. In other words, the Egyptians, on the one hand, hate Iran. They've ousted the Iranian ambassador from their territory many times on accounts of espionage. But on the other hand, they are speaking to the Iranians. Recently, in fact, in the last 8 to 9 months, there have been some meetings in order to coordinate certain regional affairs. Same as to the Hamas. The Egyptians cannot stand the Hamas. They see them as part and parcel of the Muslim Brotherhood. They threaten their own regime and its stability on the one hand, but on the other hand, they've turned a blind eye, or in other words, have green-lighted the remainder of some tunnels via which there has been some arms smuggling from Egypt side of Rafah to the Gazan side of Rafah for the Hamas in return for a certain kind of stability by the Hamas in the Sinai Peninsula. So there's been always a duality, and I can go on and on. Just for example, the current visit of President al-Sisi with President Erdogan of Turkey. There's been a huge enmity between the two leaders, and yet there's a rapprochement. There are meetings between them to coordinate. So there's a lot of duality on the basis of interest.
So is this tension over the Philadelphia arrangements for the Philadelphia route leading to a significant worsening of bilateral ties between Israel and Egypt? And if so, what can be done about it?
So let's just complete the idea of the duality. In the same manner, there's a peace agreement for the sake of stability, not for the sake of warm people-to-people normalization for the past 40-odd years, but this is an important strategic and security peace arrangement between Israel and Egypt. And that's why it is very important for the Egyptians, on the one hand, to maintain this peace agreement and not to create another front. On the other hand, yes, there is a problem that they have with the presence of IDF on the border because the Egyptian public is against the presence of IDF. It comes to the political regime, even though it's not a democracy, and the public opinion says, why are you allowing Israel this presence? That's on the one hand. And of course, we must understand that there's an added value in terms of financial benefits for certain very high-ranking Egyptian personalities vis-a-vis the smuggling, by the way, in the tunnels, underground, the Philadelphia line, and above ground. In other words, in the Rafah crossing itself. So we need to understand that. Now, what Israel is saying is that it cannot 100% count on the hermetic closing of that crossing, where we're talking about underground or above ground. And in other words, understanding that this will allow the Hamas, if we leave that crossing or if we leave that area, to get armed yet again. This is the whole issue. And Egypt is basically saying we don't want the presence because of the public opinion and because it harms our leverage on Hamas. It's the only leverage they have on Hamas. And our relationship with Hamas, which again, I emphasize, it's dual, because it's not they want Hamas or they like it. It's because they want it not to create havoc in the Sinai Peninsula and or encourage terrorism on the Sinai side.
So one possible solution to this conundrum has been that the Egyptians would build an underground barrier on their side of the border, maybe financed by the US or international bodies, to stop the smuggling and satisfy Israel. Is this an acceptable solution to Egypt?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that that's not hermetic. Why? Because that would take care of the underground smuggling. And, of course, I need to remind the audience that, creating yet another tunnel is always a possibility. So whereas there were hundreds, if not more, tunnels, and there is a certain wall, there's always space for yet another tunnel. Say that this wall underground would be so hermetic that it does not allow for any more tunnels to be built, okay, meaning there would be complete until the very place where the sea begins, okay, where you cannot build tunnels. Then you have the over-the-ground passage where, as I said, they're also smuggling if there isn't an Israeli presence. And this is a fact. It's not a matter of commentary. So will this please the Egyptians? I think it would give an answer to the Egyptians because it would leave an opening for more smuggling. Would it please Israel? That's already a political decision on the part of the leadership, whatever it may be, if it decides that it is hermetic enough or not. But we just need to understand the implications, the security implications.
So is there a better solution out there, do you think, that would win the approval of all the parties, particularly Egypt and Israel?
I personally don't know of a better solution to create a hermetic closing of that passage. I'm not a military expert. Some military experts say that if we go out completely of the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia line, it's easy enough to go back. I think militarily it is very easy to go back. The question is, will there be a possibility in terms of the international arena? It's backing, because the Hamas would not suffice in Israel's going out. It would have certain security promises by the international arena, and Israel takes those very seriously. It doesn't go back on promises, agreements, and so on. So there would be more difficulty, I believe, in going back not only militarily, but from the point of view of the international arena. However, once we actually understood the implications, it's then up to the political echelon to receive that decision, because we are at a position where we have very, very significant and very difficult, challenging human-related decisions to be made, because we have 101 hostages that are very important to return.